When my dying mother announced she was leaving everything to my golden child brother, I smiled and congratulated him. 3 months later, he was begging me for help as his perfect world crumbled. I didn't scream. I chose to play the long game instead. Let me tell you how patience became my greatest weapon. Let's rewind to that moment I stood in my mother's hospital room, watching her divide up a lifetime like she was splitting a dinner check. The fluorescent lights made everything look sickly, including the family meeting that would change everything. My husband David squeezed my hand as Mom cleared her throat. Marcus sat forward in his chair, already sensing good news. My sister Chloe twisted her yoga instructor bracelet, probably planning her next cleanse. "I've made my decision about the inheritance," Mom said, her voice steady despite the oxygen tube. "Marcus will receive the house, the investment portfolio, and the savings accounts." I felt David tense beside me. Marcus tried to look humble, but failed. Chloe nodded like this made perfect sense. "That's wonderful, Mom," I said calmly. "Marcus deserves it." The room went quiet. They were all waiting for me to explode, to argue, to fight. That's what the old Lily would have done. The Lily who spent her 20s begging for scraps of recognition. Instead, I smiled and meant it. You see, they expected drama because they knew the truth, even if they'd never admit it. For 15 years, I'd been the family's invisible safety net. When Dad had his heart attack, who handled the insurance nightmare? When Marcus's first business failed, who quietly covered his rent for 6 months? When Mom needed experimental treatment not covered by Medicare, who found the money? But here's what they didn't know. My marketing firm had grown bigger than they imagined. And one of my clients was a forensic accountant who specialized in family wealth investigations. 6 months earlier, I'd asked him to run a quiet audit on my parents' finances. Just curiosity, I told him. The results were fascinating. The investment portfolio Mom mentioned? Down 80% from bad stock picks and Marcus's secret loans against it. The house? Mortgaged to the ceiling to fund their retirement lifestyle. The savings? What savings? My parents were broke. Worse than broke. They owed money they didn't have to people who expected payment. But I kept that knowledge to myself and watched Marcus celebrate his inheritance of debt. Growing up, I was the responsible one. Not the smart one. Not the creative one, just responsible. Marcus was the visionary. Chloe was the free spirit. I was the one who made sure everyone else's visions became reality. At 12, I was balancing my parents' checkbook because they weren't good with numbers. At 16, I was writing Marcus's college application essays because he was too busy with important things. At 22, I was co-signing loans for both siblings while they figured themselves out. The pattern was always the same. They'd dream, I'd execute, they'd get credit. When I started my marketing firm at 26, Dad said, "That's nice, dear, but when are you going to get a real job?" When I landed my first Fortune 500 client, Mom said, "Don't work too hard. You'll never find a husband that way." But when Marcus opened his third failed restaurant, they called him an entrepreneur. When Chloe moved to Costa Rica to teach yoga, they called her brave. After Mom's announcement, Marcus couldn't stop grinning. Over family dinner, he started planning renovations to his house, talking about selling the stocks to fund his next business venture. I listened and nodded and asked helpful questions. "Have you seen the latest portfolio statements?" I wondered aloud. "You should really understand what you're inheriting." "Mom handles all that," he waved dismissively. I trust her judgment. Of course he did. Marcus had never had to look at a bill, never had to worry about money, never had to plan beyond next weekend. Why start now? 2 weeks later, I made my first move. I stopped all financial support to my parents. When Dad called about the mortgage payment being late, I told him my business was struggling. When they needed help with Mom's medical bills, I claimed cash flow problems. It wasn't entirely a lie. I was cash poor because I was buying things. Specifically, I was buying their debt. Through shell companies and third-party brokers, I started acquiring every loan, every mortgage payment, every outstanding bill my family owed. It took months and cost me nearly everything, but by the time Mom passed away 6 months later, I owned their financial lives. The funeral was beautiful. Marcus gave a touching eulogy about family legacy and carrying on traditions. Chloe spoke about Mom's free spirit and unconditional love. I talked about the importance of honoring the people who sacrifice for us. 3 days later, the lawyers called the family meeting to read the will officially. Marcus arrived in a new suit, already acting like the family patriarch. The reading went exactly as expected. House to Marcus, investments to Marcus, everything to Marcus. Congratulations, I told him afterward. You've inherited exactly what you deserve. He hugged me, probably the first genuine affection he'd shown me in years. Thanks, Lily. I know this might seem unfair, but I promise I'll take care of everyone. I nodded. I know you will. What happened next was beautiful in its inevitability. Marcus quit his job immediately, planning to live off the inheritance while starting his dream project, some fusion restaurant concept that made no sense. He bought a BMW, upgraded his apartment, took Chloe on an expensive sister trip to Bali. Meanwhile, the bills started arriving. First, the mortgage company demanding payment. Marcus called me, confused. I thought the house was paid off. Did you check the paperwork? I asked innocently. Then the investment firm calling about margin calls on the portfolio. Marcus panicked. The stocks are supposed to be worth $300,000. Market's been rough. I sympathized. Maybe you should liquidate carefully. By month 2, Marcus was drowning. The house needed immediate repairs he couldn't afford. The investment portfolio was worthless paper. Credit card companies were calling about missed payments. He started reaching out to family friends, trying to borrow money. But funny thing about being the golden child, when you're falling, everyone assumes you have other options. Month 3 brought the foreclosure notice. That's when Marcus showed up at my door at 11 p.m., looking like he hadn't slept in days. Lily, he said, I need help. David made coffee while Marcus explained his situation. The house, the investments, everything was fake. Mom and Dad had been living on borrowed time and borrowed money for years. I don't understand, he kept saying. They always seemed so comfortable. They were, I said gently, because someone was keeping them comfortable. He looked at me blankly. Marcus, who do you think paid for Dad's heart surgery? Mom's experimental treatments? Your restaurant deposits when the investors backed out. The realization dawned slowly across his face. That was you. I nodded. For 15 years. He put his head in his hands. Oh God, Lily. I had no idea. I know. We sat in silence for a while. Then Marcus looked up, hope flickering in his eyes. Can you help me? Please? I know I don't deserve it, but I'm desperate. I had prepared for this moment for months. I pulled out a folder of documents. I can help, I said. In fact, I'm the only one who can. I spread the papers across the coffee table. Loan agreements, mortgage transfers, debt acquisitions. I own everything, Marcus. The house mortgage, your business loans, even your credit card debt. I've been buying it all up for months. His face went white. What are you saying? I'm saying I can make this all go away. Clear your debts, give you a fresh start, even set you up with a real job at my firm. What's the catch? I leaned back. You're going to work for it. Entry-level position, same as anyone else. You're going to learn what it means to earn something. That's it. Not quite. I pulled out my phone. First, you're going to call every family member, every family friend who ever dismissed my contributions. You're going to tell them the truth about who really held this family together. Marcus stared at me. You're serious? Dead serious. He was quiet for a long time. Then slowly he nodded. Okay. The phone calls took 2 hours. Marcus called Uncle Jim, Aunt Sarah, cousins, family, friends. Each conversation was the same painful admission. I need to tell you something about Lily. She's been supporting our whole family for years. I never knew. She saved us over and over. By the end, his voice was hoarse and his pride was gone. But something else had replaced it. Something that looked like respect. Done, he said finally. I gathered up the papers. Welcome to Thompson Marketing, Marcus. You start Monday. 6 months later, Marcus was thriving in ways I'd never seen. Turns out, when you actually have to work for something, when success isn't guaranteed, you discover capabilities you never knew you had. He'd moved into a modest apartment, learned to budget, even started dating a teacher who liked him for who he was, not what he had. The golden child was gone, replaced by someone real. Chloe came back from Costa Rica humbled and apologetic. She'd had time to think about family dynamics and didn't like what she saw. I was awful to you growing up, she said during one of our new weekly coffee dates. I let them treat you like hired help while I got to be the dreamy artist. We were all playing the roles we were given, I told her. But you were the only one who tried to change the script. The extended family had done a complete 180. Suddenly, I was invited to everything, asked for advice, treated like the family success story I'd always been but they'd never acknowledged. Uncle Jim even approached me about helping with his small business. I always knew you were the smart one, he said. I just smiled. Better late than never. David and I renewed our vows last month. Not because we needed to, but because I wanted to celebrate with people who actually saw my worth. Marcus walked me down the aisle. Thank you, he whispered, for saving me from myself. As I stood there surrounded by family who finally understood my value, I felt something I'd never experienced before, the deep satisfaction of being fully seen. But the best part came 3 weeks ago.
I'm pregnant.
This child will grow up in a family where contribution is acknowledged, where effort is celebrated, where love isn't conditional on playing assigned roles. They'll never wonder if they're worthy. They'll never beg for recognition that should be freely given. They'll know from day one that their mother's strength wasn't an accident. Sometimes people ask if I went too far, if my plan was too calculated, too cold. Here's what I tell them. I spent 34 years being invisible while holding everyone together. I gave them 15 years to notice on their own. When they chose inheritance over acknowledgement, I chose strategy over silence. I didn't destroy the family. I revealed who we really were underneath all the pretending. And for the first time in my life, I like what I see. They wanted to give Marcus everything because they thought he deserved it. Turns out, he deserved exactly what he got, a chance to earn his place, just like everyone else. As for me, I finally got my inheritance too. Not money or property, but something far more valuable, a family that sees me. And I would choose that over any trust fund in the world. So tell me, did I go too far or just far enough? Let me know in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories about families, forgiveness, and the long game of justice.